Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Village of New Paltz Design Review Board and Historic Preservation Commission's July 10 meeting. We are opening the meeting at 7:03. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the June minutes, which I hope everyone had a chance to read. They looked good to me. I didn't change a thing.
I move that they be accepted as.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Please, if you don't hear me, just let me know because I have a tendency to speak very softly. So thank you.
I move the minutes be accepted as presented.
Do we have a second? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Do we have any updates from Bill
Sure.
from the village board?
I think the most significant one would be that.
Excuse me, could you come closer to the mic?
Who is it?
It's right in the middle of the table.
Sure. Just quick update. Corey Worthman, I've been an inspector for the last 3 or 4 years. He's decided he's going to work for the city of Bacon. We're going to tomorrow, it's been recommended by the mayor to put Alex Salvatore in the position as a building inspector. He's been a fire inspector for the last couple of years. He's been doing a terrific job. So we'll vote on that at Wednesday's meeting. But other than that, the Ulster County Planning Board meets Wednesday as well, which I'll have to miss. So I won't have a report next time this evening. But I can report in minutes. If you have any questions, fire away.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, good.
I think maybe just one more thing. Last time we talked about the possibility of a roundabout on the corner of
Yeah, I haven't
Manhattan and Main
heard
Street.
much discussion about that since the initial discussion. That was basically a Facebook posting. And someone suggested that maybe there should be one there because many years ago, there was discussion about putting a roundabout at that intersection of Main and Manheim. But other than that, there's been no further push from the public or expressed interest in the village board to anyone else.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Sure.
So we can move on to applications for certificate of appropriateness. And our first application is for Dr. Michael Schwartz and Edith Ruger Schwartz from 192 Huguenot Street, HPC 23/07. It's about the installation of ground-based solar panels, a solar array containing 35 panels at the rear of their property. We do have some supporting materials for this application. Is that here?
Mhm.
Oh, please join us at the table. Good evening, Dr. Schwartz. Nice to meet you. If you could tell us a little bit. Yes. If you could tell us a little bit more about your application so that everyone can hear, everyone can be familiar with what's happening.
I've got the site plan up there. I'm not sure how clear it is, but the cross hatching in that upper left corner is the placement. And on top of the screen is the rail trail on it.
So basically, a large solar array containing of 35 solar panels is proposed to be put at the rear of Dr. Schwartz's property, which will not be visible from Huguenot Street, and also maybe seasonally there might be some visibility from the rail trail in the winter time when the leaves are off. The panels would be about 163 feet away from the rail trail, so that's quite a long distance away. I don't think it would pose any problems for anybody really. And there is already an existing solar array at a neighboring property nearby, which was approved earlier at one of our earlier meetings. I don't see any reason not to approve this application. We received several supporting letters from the neighbors as well, who were all in favor of this application.
Not letters, but Dr. spoke.
Yes, yes.
Great.
Yes.
I meant we have documentation that the neighbors are in support of the project. What do you think, colleagues?
It seems fine to me, given the location. And I know the other one is, as you described, seasonally visible and otherwise fine. So no objections.
I walked by both the rail trail and on Huguenot Street, and it seems perfectly acceptable to me.
I also, same here, I walk by, I'm not, I'm pretty confident that you won't be able to see it. So as long as that's the case, which, was expressly described in the application, then I don't see any reason not to, to approve it personally.
Okay.
And the partial visibility from the rail trails, I don't think that's an issue at all.
Oh, do we have a motion to approve the application as submitted?
I move to approve the application as submitted.
Second,
Seconded by Stephen. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
all right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate your work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all the additional information that you sent
There
us.
was a
that we
similar
requested.
2 doors down too, so because you approved that, you had
Yeah,
it similar, so.
thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much.
How do you notify me? Because I have to tell the contractor when he can start.
I think you can start.
I will be in touch with the building department and I'll copy you on my email tonight. So Corey will know and you can pop by here to get the.
Okay,
All right.
great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The second item on our applications for certificate of appropriateness is from the Oracle Restaurant Group LLC, represented by Nikki
Hi.
Werner. Hi, nice to see you
See
again.
you again today. Noah.
Good to see you again.
In different attire. at this
Yes.
point of the day.
So we had an addendum about exterior signage.
Yes, we had received an approval for the reconstruction of the building at 15 and a half North Front Street earlier in the year. And one of the conditions was when we were ready for signage to submit a proposed sign detail and bracket detail. And we've done that here tonight, and we wanted to put that forth and get an approval so we can order that up, hopefully, as the construction is progressing pretty rapidly. We're on schedule, and we hope to have it open by October 1st is our goal. So that is the plan at this point in time.
Sounds great.
So we're going with it's not a wrought iron, but it's a painted steel fixture. I believe it's 43 inches that it would extend out, which would be within the sign regulations. It will be mounted at the appropriate height for the sign regulations, and it would contain 2 integrated LED lights in the fixture itself, so it would not cast out or off any light other than at the sign that we propose to submit. We've submitted a sample of what the sign color scheme will look like in the true black, and then below that is an actual sample of the sign that we propose to place in that color scheme. That sign will measure 33 inches wide by 14 inches at its highest point, double-sided, black with gold inlaid paint lettering carved in wood.
Where's the sign mounted over the,
To be mounted over the front door center, so between the two windows on the front of the building. And it will be just about 8 feet, 8.5 feet off of the sidewalk, so it won't be any head clearance issues or anything like that. We do have some telephone lines that extend out over the sidewalk, so we'll place it appropriately, but everything looks like it should be able to center between the windows.
okay,
And then we'll probably take a piece of the trim board that we propose to use and, fix that into the siding, and then it will mount to the trim board. So there's no topography issue there, and it'll look really nice. The detail will look nice when it's complete.
I think as long as the dimensions of the sign are within the
Yes, the sign code allows for a
yeah.
significantly larger sign, but we decided that, based on what is on North Front Street, that this was appropriate for the size, and we did want it to have a little bit of character. So instead of just a square sign, we went with an oval shape.
And I think given that the new proposed restaurant will be a French
It's
themed
going to
restaurant.
be a
this
French
floor
themed
is,
restaurant.
kind of
yes.
reminiscent of French
That is correct.
style.
That's what we look for.
Yes,
Something a little different. So,
yes. I think it's really nice, and it would fit the building well. What do you think? Yeah.
good?
I think it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the people I shared office with in Rosendale, we were just measuring signs today. We're trying to get one in before the Street Fest, and we landed on the size very similar to what you're proposing. So I think the scale is good. And
Okay.
I had a question about how you're going to mount it. So you had already mentioned a piece
Yeah,
of
we're gonna
actual trim.
We're gonna take the trim and cut back the siding in that section, and then the siding will butt up to it, so it'll be basically boxed out, and then the bracket will be right to the trim.
Yeah, perfect. I think that makes sense. But then I guess the only other comment was like, I don't know if the lights are going to be on a dimmer or not,
They
but
will probably be on a photo cell, but we'll also have a bypass to shut them off when, we leave for the night, but one of the troubles by just having them on a switch is sometimes staff forget to turn the lights on and off, so they may be on a timer, but definitely a photo cell to turn them on.
Okay.
We will look at that, but we don't intend for this to kind of run like, all night long.
no, for sure. I guess if it ended up being a little too bright, but that being said, I'm sure that the light fixtures are, intended for this exact purpose. So I don't think that'll be an issue.
Yeah, I think, as I said, they kind of direct all the light at the sign itself,
Yeah,
so there
that's-
shouldn't be too much light pollution.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that all sounds good to me.
It seems that we are all in support of the sign.
Yes.
Yep.
Do we have somebody to approve the application?
I move we approve the HPC 2302 addendum for the sign at 15.5 North Front.
Even
I second.
George seconded. All in favor?
Hi,
Aye.
Thank you.
yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Am I the next item as well? or-
Yes, you are.
Right.
And
I'm going to ask my partner in crime, Mr. Scott Arnold, to join me for this one.
and this will be a consultation about 137 North Chestnut Street Trail Link properties.
Yes, we are back again for, I think will pretty much hopefully be our final appearance for a while. We've gotten some good indication from the village engineer that the village board will have a report from him very soon that will detail the necessary improvements to the sewer pump station on North Chestnut. And that will allow us to move forward with completing seeker for the project and ultimately allow the planning board to finalize its seeker approval, determination, I should say, and the necessary approvals or conditional approvals for the project. And we've been, working with you folks for probably the better part of almost 6 months now, kind of just going through the design, looking at elements, seeing how we can incorporate thoughts and suggestions and really make the building, a showpiece for the new NVR district. Some of the open items that we had were the colors, which Camilla has been so helpful with in looking at selections of brick and samples for siding. And I think we've pretty much narrowed that down to a very small scope. And another item was the window detail. There had been a fair amount of feedback and comments about not having the windows be, I'll call them bland or without appeal. There had been some construction that went on in the village where thin brick had been utilized, and these sills had been utilized that had no dimension to them whatsoever and really did not add to the aesthetics of the building. So we went out and we sought a couple of different vendors and, working through the companies with the thin brick. They had recommended a few different vendors, and we found some products that can be used with thin brick that will actually give some profile to the sills and the tops. And this is one of them that we've kind of settled on, or not settled on, but we actually do like the design. There is a slight modification that we could go with too, and we wanted feedback on that. And as opposed to the triangular points, to maybe square those points off at the top, which I think might work a little better with the style of our building. And then the second piece of it would be and they didn't have a representative photograph of it, but to go with a more Hudson Valley type of product and go with a bluestone as opposed to a sandstone or a light colored white stone like this. So we're really focusing in on that. And we would like to propose that to the board as the alternative. So something like this with either the triangular corners or straight 90-degree angles, but more so in a bluestone as opposed to the light white color.
For both the lintel and the sill?
Correct.
May I ask what made you move away from the brick soldier course that was originally?
We had
proposed?
pulled back at the last meeting that we met at on the soldier course, just because it was not aesthetically appealing with the thin brick as it would be with a normal brick application. And we thought that this would be a much cleaner, but yet still give you that, kind of pop on the windows that we were looking for. So we had backed away from that previously at the prior meeting. And I think was on our prior design that we had submitted as well. The open item was what we were going to do with the sill, because there was a discussion about a brick sill or a stone sill. We really like this, this product to make the lintel and the sill both bluestone. So that's our one of our main thoughts. And then there is a second piece to discuss about the moving of the penthouse staircase. AJ Coppola, our architect, is traveling as well, so he was not able to get that submission. But as we talked earlier today, that may be something that can be a final comeback condition once we've been through planning, as we talked about. So that's some thoughts. So we're welcome to hear what you have to say on those items.
Yeah, I think the bluestone sill and lentil would be really nice. I think squared off also would be
Yes.
nicer.
Sure.
And not so sure if you need that pediment up on top.
Okay.
It might look nice just to keep it clean.
I agree with that. Square up who's done with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to be clear, if it's squared off, it'll still be, it won't be squared off right at the brick opening, it'll still kind of bear. Yeah,
Correct.
okay, great. So
Like the
it looks
sill-
it's actually.
Like the sill does. It would-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would give it that structural depth to it.
And then, okay, and then the blue, just to be clear, the bluestone, it would be like a similar flat finish. It's not gonna be like faced or anything.
Correct. It wouldn't be etched or carved. It would be a flat finish, but it would still give us relief from the building. So it would not be a flat, smooth, in-line, in plane surface.
And it would be about 3/4 high like this, of the brick, like the same height.
Probably 2.5 to 3/4 high. They, I mean, they have different heights and profiles, but we were looking for something a little more substantial because of the size of the building itself.
Yeah, no, because I think the scale, the height of this is nice. I mean, I think it's also, it's always best if it sits within, like an even number of
Correct.
brick forces.
Yeah,
and,
correct. Especially with
and
thin brick.
obviously,
'cause you're not-
Exactly, yeah, just to make it look all tight and structural and, yeah, I mean, I do think that the sandstone is probably what you see more often, but maybe you're right, maybe the Hudson Valley, the bluestone is used in a similar capacity. I think it'll look nice either way. So yeah, I think that's all good. I mean, I think it might be nice to see like a spec.
Sure.
Just since the image that we're seeing is not exactly what you're proposing.
It's not,
It's
no.
a different material, a different profile. But I think everything you're saying like sounds great, but maybe just to see a final spec, not to add any more workload to everything you have to pull together, but just to kind of finalize, because I know we've talked about it so much.
Right.
I think I might just, just to see that final spec and, not even a detail, just a product sheet one might help just kind of like finalize this.
Sure. We can circulate that through Val and Val
Yeah.
can send that out just so everyone has it. Sure.
Yeah, that's possible. That'd be great.
Yeah, bluestone and brick is a great combination. We see that in New Paltz and in the area quite
Well,
often. so-
It pulls together kind of the history of the Hudson Valley, right? So, very prevalent in the bluestone and obviously the brick industry of the Hudson Valley and Kingston and other places. It kind of ties it in. So the only thing else we could use is Rosendale cement here, but they're not allowing us to use that. I mean, they're not allowing us to get that anymore. So
As Shane was saying, it would be nice to see the final drawing of with the straight cut off of the lentil and maybe removing that pediment.
okay.
And yeah, and definitely 3/4 high, this way you don't have a sliver of brick on the top.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are all very good observations. Thank you very much.
Is it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Please go ahead, Mike.
So you refer to this as a product. Is it bluestone or is it?
It's a composite product. There's a stone product, but it's a manufactured product. So,
Okay.
but it would have the look of bluestone,
Right.
much like our countertops and things are nowadays.
Yeah.
So it will not be actual bluestone that they shave down because the durability of it would probably not be
Right.
as good with the mounting that we would need to do.
Right. Thanks.
Seems like everybody likes the new idea, and like
Yeah.
once you have the new drawings with the squared of design and maybe a representation of the bluestone material that's proposed,
Okay.
I think we can definitely add this as a
Yeah,
improvement. to
I think
the
it all sounds
design.
good. It just the final check of the specification, just to make sure that, there's no unforeseen, something that we didn't consider and that it's consistent with everything that was described. Just like anything else, I feel like seeing the final spec just to kind of tie it all together and make sure that it's,
Sure.
it's, consistent with, because again, everything that we talked about, that all sounds great. But you know how it goes with
Oh, yeah.
specifications.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it can turn out a little different than.
You get a different product or
Exactly.
vendor changes the product on you.
Exactly.
I think once the brick samples come in, we can make a final decision on that too. And maybe you can just think about what the final feel of the building you would like it to be, if it's something modern, because the recommendations I made, they are quite diverse in their styles, so to speak. Some of them are more rustic and some of them are a bit more modern, just to have a variation of choices. So once we narrow that down, then we can move on to the siding colors.
The lean is probably more towards the rustic side, to make the building look in character. While it will be a new construction building, we don't want it to look like it's a brand new building standing here, but, so, yeah.
I think that's.
But that's the direction we're kind of, leaning to. I think that probably captures the character a little bit better of the community. So that's what we're following in terms of a plan at this point.
Thank you.
One other question.
Yes.
I may not be looking at the most current elevations, but the window treatment we were just talking about, that's just on the brick sections, right?
Correct.
And the other sections would not.
They would not have that on the other
Right.
sections. They would be traditionally framed out with the hardy product.
Right, okay, thanks.
Which is 4-inch
4-inch on
all the
the,
way around,
yes, and a
a
sill,
sill.
a true sill.
a true historic sill, the biggest sill.
I will check with AJ, but I think we had talked about that very early on, that we were going to go that route, I believe, when we got, like, maybe our second meeting,
It is, yeah.
we had talked about
Right.
that.
Yes, we try to avoid.
Try to avoid just window paint, picture framing.
Yeah. Yeah,
But it loves.
Nice.
But you don't want to have that dynamic, you want to have, if you're going to go this route, you don't want, obviously, just a picture frame around it with trim.
Yeah,
Very
that's
nice.
really good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I guess then, we know you don't meet in August, obviously. I guess our ask would be, do you feel that we are in a position that you could recommend to the planning board that we are, substantially through the process, and really we're down to final selections, because they may have comments that they're going to interject on the overall scheme of development, and maybe once their comments have been taken and we all come back with one plan, and then, get a final sign off. You think that's
Sounds
fair?
like a good plan. Yes.
Because, we don't, I don't ever want to like settle in and say, okay, here it is. And then we get there and they're like, oh, but we don't want this, so, generally speaking, they don't do that, but sometimes that could happen. So maybe we could ask for maybe just a motion of support at this point, because we don't have a certificate of appropriateness required for this. So just maybe a letter or an email to the planning board kind of saying, we feel they're ready for you guys,
Yes, we
so.
can definitely do that.
Great, that would be wonderful. And then, like we said, we can continue to work offline on the colors, and we'll get those other items as they, trickle in. Unfortunately, some of the vendors are a little slow these days, but, well, busy, but slow. Great.
What was you were gonna say something about the staircase coming up?
Yes, so the prior discussion, I don't remember if you were at the last meeting.
Yeah, I was.
Pulling it off the plane.
Yes, I remember that.
It does not seem that will be an issue, but AJ was trying to rework it.
Okay.
So we could do that, and wanted to kind of play with it and give a couple of options, because he didn't want to
Okay.
just give one, but he also had to make sure that it worked with the building layout. So that the staircase started somewhere in the building that it would make sense.
Right. Go on. Got it.
So he says he thinks he can accommodate that. It was just he is traveling, I believe, out of the country as well, so he
Mhm.
could not make that happen readily, quickly, but he's going to do that. So we'll submit that once
Okay.
it's complete.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
September agenda.
I think by then we
Scott?
should be done with our seeker and ready for the next round. So yes, we'll plan on that.
We'll give you a break. for
Yes.
August.
Give everybody a break for August, so. And Tom will be back from Italy, hopefully.
Yes, by September.
Good, great. Awesome. Well, thank you again for the time and effort that you put into us. I know it's not an easy task, so. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks. Oh, colors for 15. I'll stick around if you want. I can wait. We can talk about that afterwards. Do we have to submit a separate Remember for 15 North
Oh,
Front?
yes, that was it, yes.
Yeah, I forgot to ask about that. We took that chimney down and now we have to
So
paint.
they're planning to repaint.
Oh, to repaint that whole,
Yeah, so we want to repaint. So I'll stick around if you have others. I don't want to hold other folks up.
okay,
Or maybe just quickly, we can determine whether it should be a like for like. Yeah, because we don't really dictate colors,
yeah,
or we might advise you, but we
Okay.
don't say, oh, you have to paint it a certain.
So as long
way.
as we're like for like on
Yeah,
that,
it
in that,
Good to
in
go.
that,
You can just go ahead.
I guess if I can communicate with you and Val and I'll give the
Yes.
submission maybe.
I can just go over in the next couple of days with the charts.
I pulled the historical collection, so I
Yeah.
think there's a couple that
Yeah,
look
I'm sure we will
appropriate.
find
So
something. That's simple.
I'll send an
Thank
email
you.
out. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep, good night.
Next on our agenda is Jason Anderson, representing 145 North Chestnut Street. Please. Jason.
Good evening.
Good to see you again.
Likewise. The last thing we were on was just the color.
Yes.
That's basically where we were. And so we went through a few options last time and we settled on one. And then from there, brought it back to the owner and we looked at a few other options as well and sort of compared and we came back to the option we settled on here. So
Oh, that sounds
That was
wonderful.
pretty much it.
Yeah.
But what we did is what was requested was we want to see it in real life. So. Or some samples, but here is. To give you a sense. So we have. Try to. So those are the colors that we had selected, which was the Chelsea gray, warm tan, and Kendall charcoal. Right. So that's what they look like in real life, and that is this is the version of the rendering which we had presented last time as well. So nothing else has changed. There's been no other adjustments to the drawings, just honing in. Absolutely. And that's it. That's everything.
Well, it's good to know that they were, the
Yes,
owners were receptive to our
absolutely,
ideas.
absolutely. So it worked out well. And actually they look better in the sunlight than they do.
yeah.
Yes, it's always,
Trying to look
I
at
will say that.
Yeah.
we always
Always
advise
such a
people to look
collaboration.
at the
Yeah.
colors in daylight. These fluorescent lights are not very flat.
Not doing it. Yeah, exactly. But that was it for this meeting.
So the only question I have is that the rendering looks like there's a little bit of variation in like the, the wood tones. Is that it? Is that just how the render, how it was rendered, or it's gonna be more of a solid, consistent?
It'll likely be more solid. This is purely just because of the differentiation in the
The kind of undulating,
texture,
yeah.
and then when we put the sun on it, it creates a little bit of
Okay,
a
yeah,
texture. But it's all hardy plank, so it'll all be painted.
yeah.
I was going to say, maybe if it was real wood, then depending on the. wood
Depending on how it
texture,
weathered as well would be,
Paint
but
lines.
then of course that's going to change pretty significantly over the years. Actually gray out. Which would be different, different appearance altogether.
This will gray out too?
No,
No,
no, but if it was,
Right,
yeah.
right.
yeah, if we use cypress or cedar,
Oh, I see what you mean.
It was real wood and we were by the ocean,
that's it.
seawater.
That's right. Cypress is fantastic for that, but
Yeah.
Mm,
you have to want that. And that's everything.
questions about the project? I think we touched upon quite a few things at our last meeting.
No, and thank you for taking all of our comments into consideration. Appreciate it. I like the color scheme.
Yeah, me
And just to
too.
be clear,
That worked
this
well.
is the only thing that we're reviewing, this is the last.
That's the only thing that we're, yeah, everything else was done.
All the time.
Yeah. yeah, everything else was wrapped up and done, so.
That's right.
Thanks. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So what's the process for the planning boards? We're sort of in the same boat with them, right, the
Yes.
previous.
We can write a recommendation or some opinions
That would be
that
great.
we have.
The last one basically
Yes.
said, it was a great letter that went, and it said, we're in agreement with everything, just pending the final colors.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, fantastic. That helps. Do you mind if I take one sample back at least? Okay.
Personally, I don't need these.
Okay. I just need one, but. Would you like to keep it or no?
If you don't mind, maybe we will just keep
Oh,
the
absolutely.
colors.
Oh, okay. Absolutely.
And do you mind if we might take a picture with the bricks?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
House. This was another reason why we kind of moved away from the original color choices, because they didn't exactly the first brick colors.
What? Val, you want me to?
let's take a photo. You want to do it?
Black too.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Can you email me that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Jason.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is number 5 and number 7 Prospect Street. We were asked by the planning board to do a consultation and give a recommendation about the proposals that concern 2 buildings on Prospect Street. Number 5, which is an old carriage house that was originally a part of number 3, the beautiful Victorian building on number 3 Prospect Street, which burned down in 1991. The plans call for the demolition of the carriage house in order to build a 2-family residence. And we also have number 7 Prospect Street, which the developers are proposing an addition at the back of that building, also to construct rental residences. We received some comments via email by residents of Prospect Street, and I believe we have community members present at the meeting tonight. So we are welcoming you and would like to hear your comments about these proposed developments. Please come and join us at the table and tell us what you think.
Well, please identify.
Yes, I'm June Wheeler. I live at 15 Prospect Street, which is Allison Nash's next door neighbor, I believe. You probably have the letter that she wrote originally. She's the immediately next to the proposed construction and demolition and construction. I don't know if you've walked past or you know which building structures we're talking about. I mean, one good view of them would be from my driveway. Although when it rains, like yesterday, you wouldn't have been able to walk down my driveway because more and more water flows from uphill, which is Allison's, and then the properties we're talking about, it flows down into our driveway. But maybe that's not something for you to take up. Anything that would affect water flow and drainage would be a disaster, actually, for our property. But if you were in our driveway and looking towards those buildings, you see the beautiful, large barn that looks to me to be in pretty good shape. And it's a lovely color. It's just, I always thought it was Allison's barn until relatively recently, because it's so close to her house. It's a very, she has a very narrow driveway, and then that next property is there, and that's their barn. And because of the way that all the buildings are set back, I can, basically my view is Allison's house. And then through the trees, I can see the carriage house and then the beautiful barn. And I imagine that our next door neighbor on the other side probably also has those buildings as a buffer between the very busy corner where there's the gas station and the apartment building that's already there. And it's such a buffer that I never have felt that I was really that close to Main Street. It was really remarkable to live that close and feel that we're not on the edge of this really wonderful, close-knit community that we have on Prospect Street. We feel right in the middle of it, even though we are technically on the edge. The carriage house I've always found charming. I had no idea that it was part of a Victorian that burned until the other night when Allison included that in her comments. So to take away the carriage house, what's left would be a shame. My personal investment is more towards that barn though, because it's so beautiful. And I understand that it's not, unfortunately, historically marked at this time. I don't know why, except that maybe it was overlooked because it's just this beautiful barn. Maybe no one ever had to think twice about it before, but it would be a shame to damage it anyway. The fact that they might be removed in order to make room for more, what clearly would be tempting to student housing. Although, I understand you can't dictate, you can't decide who you're going to rent to, but single rooms with each with a bathroom is going to be a completely different, it's not going to be a community that's going to integrate. They're not going to want to, they're not going to even realize that there's a family community there to integrate with because they'll be relatively transient. So that would be a poor substitute for what we have there now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen.
I'll speak.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, of course. My name is Julie Guillemot. I live on 14 Prospect Street. I'm 22 and I go to school here in New Paltz, but I moved here before I started going to school. So I have a prepared statement that I would like to read. Okay. When I heard that the houses were going to be destroyed for another apartment complex, I was angered and saddened. I love historic New Paltz and I want to preserve it. I'm also upset about the environmental impact that comes with building an entirely new house when there is one already standing there. It might be a historic building. It is a historic building and it should be treated as such. So when I moved to Prospect Street, I did notice two extremely out of place buildings towards the front, and they looked void of any life or personality. They looked fake and plastic. In other words, they're ugly. Every time I pass these houses, I feel no sense of happiness. Something I recently learned from Buddhism is the importance of what we consume, not just food. It is equally important to surround ourselves with positive and happy things. I would like to be surrounded by a community that loves its art and preserves history. I would love to live in a place that puts ecological care before anything else. And I would love to be in a place that is touched by everybody's personality, to create a wonderful and vibrant street. I sense no such vibrance from the apartments that currently exist, and I suspect the next ones will not be any different. The impression I get from these buildings is that they were built the cheapest, fastest way possible without any regard for real living. This is New Paltz. Keep New Paltz weird.
Thank you very much.
My last name is Gillemot, and my first name is Julee. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Anyone else would like to? Please.
My name is Sarah Solomon from 14 Prospect Street. I just want to describe the inside of the structure that is that was saved from the fire. I don't know, have any of you seen the inside? It's just so, there's a spectacular wooden structure in the upper area. I know it's not visible from the outside, but it seems extremely unique and worthwhile and historic. So, I mean, I spoke last time about the importance of the street remaining, or at least maintaining what it is, the community and the history, but that building, the inside, I wanted to stress that was additionally special for your consideration.
Are we talking about the carriage house or the
Yeah.
barn?
Carriage house, I haven't been in, yeah, the carriage house, there was a sale, there was like a estate sale or
Carriage
something.
house. Okay.
And I went and it was run down downstairs, but upstairs it was something just fantastic. The structure seemed extremely strong and very historic.
Thank you.
I don't know if I can face my neighbors, but I can say so. My name is Gerald Benjamin. I live at 19 Prospect Street. I've lived there for 35 years. I'm not prepared to speak to you today in detail. I've been out of town for 7 months and this issue came to my attention this week. I think there are 2 or 3 points to make. One, I appreciate that we are separated from Main Street by these buildings, to some degree by these buildings and their distance from. They're not a barrier, but they're a partly psychological, partly physical separation of the people on the street. We have a very lively community and a very young community. One of the rewarding aspects of recent life on our street was that the old people like me were replaced by young people with lots of children, and it's transformed the feeling of the community that we have. I think that the community, we all know that we're challenged in the Hudson Valley and in this town by our lack of housing that's accessible to people of modest means, and that the demand by students for housing off campus has been transforming in some degree of our community and in some of our neighborhoods. I know that your role and purpose does not reach every aspect of social change in the community, or the physical change and its relationship to the social change in the community. And I'm not prepared to say I don't support this project because I haven't studied it. So I suspect where I might come out, but I don't know where I've come out yet. Of course, I'm not making evidence-based comments here. But I think from a psycho-emotional and communal point of view, we have to be mindful of each opportunity we have to change what we have. And we should be demanding of ourselves about the social consequences, the communal consequences of these physical changes. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for listening to me and being indulgent of my relative ignorance of the subjects.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
If I may.
Please.
My name is Misha Harnik. I live quite far away from Prospect Street, but I'm familiar with it and I know people who live there. And it was a terrible blow when that beautiful building at the corner with the cupola burned down in 1971, it was, I believe. No, 91, sorry, 91. Now they put this parks in there. So I think that replacing the two houses which are next to it, which, okay, they are not terribly gorgeous, but to replace them with probably another boxed houses next there, it would really change the look of the street. And the other thing is, considering that they are planning to convert the single family residence to a two family residence, it may be two family residence, but it may turn out to be for students. And that I wouldn't really wish on anybody to be in the neighborhood of who knows how many students living there. And it is quite possible that may happen, although I'm not putting the blame right away on the owners and the builders. But I think it should be considered somewhere in the back of one's mind that it may result in, for the residents of the street, a noisy neighborhood. And considering that it's across from the bus station, wow. So I personally, I have nothing to do with it. It's too far, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have anyone else who wish to speak on this subject? We have two, sorry. Sorry. We received two comments via email today. One of them is from Mr. Terence Dungan, who says, and I quote, "The original house at number 3 Prospect Street was built around 1900 and was the residence of principal of the New Paltz Normal School. This house faced south toward Main Street and had an expensively landscaped front lawn. Apparently, built during the term of Myron Scudders, principal of the Normal School from 1999 to 1908, it is identified on at least one old postcard as the Scudder residence. Reportedly, a subsequent owner subdivided the lot, giving the front lawn to his sons for the construction of a service station. That original service station is still there at the core of the existing gas station, service station, convenience store. I used to have an old booklet published in 1958 by the Delta Kappa fraternity, which had a picture of the old Uppies Gulf station. At that time, as shown in the photograph, Main Street was still paved with the old yellow bricks. By the 1980s, this beautiful old house was occupied as a rooming house, and in the early 1990s, it was destroyed by fire. The existing apartment building, currently at number 3 Prospect Street, was constructed in 1992. It was built as a modular building, and with a sense of nostalgia, it was built using the original front doors from the old Scudder house. Behind the original house at what is now 5 Prospect Street was the old carriage house. That building is still there, and although the first floor exterior has lost some of its charm with later remodeling, it is still an attractive and distinctive old building, the last vestige of one of the most beautiful residences in New Paltz. Now there is a proposal to tear it down and build a nondescript 2-family building with 6 bedrooms. As it is now, the old carriage house has a total of 3 bedrooms, 2 in the original 2nd floor apartment and 1 in the later 1st floor apartment. As part of its original carriage house configuration, there is also an interior parking garage with space for 1 car. This interior parking space is adjacent to the 1st floor apartment and could easily be incorporated into the apartment, making it a 2-bedroom unit for a total of 4 bedrooms. Additionally, the 1st floor apartment is currently a modest space, largely finished with inexpensive wood veneered panels. Besides adding the extra bedroom, care would need to be given to the interior detailing. However, this apartment also has a large semi-private outdoor garden with a view of the Shangang Ridge and the Catskills to the north. Properly finished, this apartment could command a higher than average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment. Of particular note is the significant aesthetic of the original upstairs apartment. The main space in this apartment is the living room, a large high-ceilinged room with distinctive woodwork and a large, attractive working brick fireplace. The east side of the living room has a pair of glass doors which open onto a small porch. The kitchen dining area needs updating, but the west side of this space has large windows facing the view of the Shangang Ridge. Properly redone, this would be an extraordinary vintage apartment, also capable of commanding a higher than average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment. Considering the proximity to the bus station, if properly marketed, advertised in the Sunday Times, young professionals from New York City would kill for these apartments. Of course, the applicant would have to clean up their adjacent property at number 3 Prospect Street. For example, the parking lot was not striped, so the tenant parking can be rather haphazard. The tenant parking on the lawn on the north side of the building has turned that lawn into an unsightly patch of mud. There are 2 dumpsters on the property, but only the first dumpster is enclosed as required by law. The second unenclosed dumpster juts out into the parking lot and is frequently overloaded with debris spilling onto the pavement. The retaining walls at the entrance to the basement apartment are in a state of serious disrepair, and it is questionable whether this downstairs apartment, which was originally constructed ostensibly as a commercial space, is a lawful basement apartment or an unlawful cellar apartment. It is also questionable whether this apartment meets the sunlight and ventilation requirements for a residence in accordance with the New York Property Maintenance Code. Properly renovating the carriage house and cleaning up the adjoining property would significantly increase the income potential of the carriage house building, providing the applicants with a reasonable profit, while at the same time saving the applicants the considerable cost of demolishing the distinctive vintage carriage house and constructing the new building. In their publication, Zoning Board of Appeals, the New York Department of State makes 2 important and relevant points. State notes that although an applicant may be entitled to a reasonable profit, they are not entitled to a maximum profit. In the publication, State spends time demonstrating the importance of being willing to say no to a questionable proposal. Examples are given of the courts supporting a board when disgruntled applicants filed an Article 78 appealing a board's dissatisfying decision. For example, in Nordon versus the Board of Appeals of the neighboring town of Lloyd, the court upheld the board when it granted a variance for an apartment complex, but with significantly fewer bedrooms than the applicant had suggested. Similarly, a careful renovation of the carriage house would result in a reasonable profit for the applicants, though it might not be their preferred option. Particularly when one has purchased a property with significant historical and aesthetic value, it is important that the applicant's interest be balanced against the community's interests, as in the case of Sasso versus Osgood, where the Court of Appeals held that a board was required to weigh the benefits of the applicant against the detriment of the well-being of the neighborhood or community. I asked the board in their deliberations regarding this application to be especially mindful of the community's interest and the potential impact and loss that the applicant's proposal would be to the existing neighborhood. Respectfully submitted by Terence Dungan.
Terry,
I'm sorry?
I couldn't hear you.
yeah, Terry.
Terry
submitted it.
Dungan. And we have another letter which was submitted by Alison Nash. Would anyone like to read that?
Sure.
Please, Stephen.
Okay. To the members of the Historic Preservation Commission, I appreciate your consideration of the planning board application for 5 and 7 Prospect Street, as I very much value the older homes on the street where I have lived for the past 30 years. I grew up in a post-World War II development in Queens, yet have always been drawn to historic old towns. At the planning board meeting in which the site plans for 5 and 7 were being discussed, Sam Serta, the owner of the properties, described the Harshaw carriage house at number 5 and barn at number 7 as something like deteriorating old buildings. He seemed truly perplexed that Prospect Street residents were describing them as jewels and wanted them saved. Sam's goal is to fit as many bedrooms into these 2 properties as possible. He and Rick Serta now own all the houses from number 7 next to mine to their gas station at the corner. They bought number 3 after the beautiful historic Victorian mansion burned down and installed a modular structure that has 4 apartments. Note that this building is in the B2 district, so a permitted use. They bought number 6 when longtime resident Stuart Glenn moved to a smaller home. They bought number 7 when Peter Lichtenstein died, and number 5 soon after Liz Harshaw died. Liz's mother emigrated from Germany and is a relative of the original owner of the Mountain Brauhaus. All of these houses are in the R2 district and had been 2-family homes. The Sertas converted number 6 to 12 rentals by the room and number 7 to 5 or 6 rentals by the room. They now want to demolish the Harshaw carriage house and likely put up another modular structure. According to the site plan, each of the 6 bedrooms has its own bathroom, an indication that they will be rentals by the room. They want to add another large, likely modular structure to number 7 to add 4 more bedrooms. For all of these plans, no attention is paid to the character of the neighborhood. Rather, the goal is to expand the houses and restructure them to fit in as many bedrooms as are allowed by code. New Paltz is known for its rich history, and Prospect Street is a lovely street lined with houses that are at least 100 years old. Allison's is 120 years old. It is a true neighborhood in which the neighbors know one another and one another's children. Many people stroll along Prospect Street, both residents and tourists. My house is directly next door to number 7, and because number 5 is in a lot that is behind number 3, it too is directly visible from my house and yard. Instead of lovely old homes and greenery, my view will now be of modular structures and parking lots. I am of course concerned about the changes that would take place directly next to my home, but I am also distressed to see what had been so many family and long-term resident homes broken up into as many single rooms as can fit. Houses built as family homes become converted to structures filled with small bedrooms. Once done, it cannot be undone without a substantial financial investment. Village zoning code is meant to preserve the character of the neighborhoods, which is why rentals by the room are not a permitted use in R2 districts. Parentheses, on the next 2 pages, I provide support for this claim. Close. It is unclear to me why such rentals have been permitted, but even with rentals by the room sprinkled in R2 districts, the proposed plans for numbers 5 and 7 create an imbalance, with too many old homes destroyed to create a cluster of large-scale modular rentals by the rooms in what has been a vibrant neighborhood of longtime residents on Prospect Street. Such residents are the heart of our historic village. From this neighborhood, we've had a mayor, 3 members of the Elting Library Board, 3 village board members, 1 who is also a volunteer firefighter, 2 ZBA members, a planning board member, and 2 people on the Shade Tree Commission, many of these who continue to serve. The continuous process of converting family homes into rentals by the room effectively decimates the village's resource of potential citizens who can serve the community. I know the Harshaw Carriage House needs work. I'm hoping that the exterior can be preserved, the roof is fairly new, and the inside renovated to a code-compliant 2-family home. Before Peter Lichtenstein bought number 7, it had been a 2-family home, and without any expansion, this too can be a beautiful home for 2 households. My hope is that the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Board can work with Sam and Rick on plans for these properties that would preserve a street filled with lovely old homes in the community-oriented neighborhood of Prospect Street. And then there's details of the code,
I think
which I don't
we might not have to.
think.
Online, I don't know if they're here to speak to you, but we might want to invite them to themselves.
If anyone is watching the meeting via Zoom or YouTube, would you like to make a comment? Can we send them a text message? Hello, it looks like your microphone is off.
Hi, Rosalind Cherry. I used to live in the apartment at 5 Prospect Street, and I have since moved to Zero Place, and I'm very happy there. And I just came to get a feel for what people had to say, and maybe I'll speak at the next meeting, but I'm really not prepared to say anything, except I'm just happy to see so many of the people on the committee who I know. I'm surprised. I'm happy to see you. So anyway, I'm gonna hold off on saying anything.
Thank you, Rosalind. Hello, Ruth. Would you like to make your comments? We are ready to hear you.
I seriously don't have any comments. I'm here because I also have an interest in the preservation of our historic village. I don't live on Prospect Street, but I have lived in and around New Paltz for the last 45 years. My friend Allison Nash, whose letter you just finished reading, is away in Iceland right now. And so I'm kind of here as her eyes and ears.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
I think it's important to mention that our board does not have jurisdiction on that part of the village. However, we can make a recommendation to the planning board, and we are here to discuss our feelings and opinions about this project. I can definitely identify with many of the points that our public commenters made this evening. And I'm very happy to see that young people are also in favor of preserving our old historical structures. And new is not always better. We have to realize that. And too many old buildings in New Paltz have been the victim of demolition already, in my opinion. And probably there was a very big missed opportunity when number 3 burned down and was not restored. So I think we might have a moral obligation to try and do everything we can to save what's left as a legacy from number 3. Not to mention that the carriage house itself, in my opinion, has great historic character and charm, and is a very unique building. We haven't seen many such carriage houses. I don't know, I'm not aware of any other in the village. Is there anything that you know that's similar to that?
It's not many.
My next door neighbor has one, but it doesn't have the same, detail and level of ornament that this one has. As you said, it's very unique and it's a beautiful building.
I have one, but it's not as beautiful as that one.
So my feeling is, and I definitely agree with Mr. Dungan's opinion that we are not obligated to indulge developers' wish for profits at the expense of everybody else who lives in a neighborhood. And my fear is that if this new project is realized, really the whole field of Prospect Street is going to change. We see what happens when these kind of rooming houses are built. For example, if you compare the western side of Center Street to the east, it's night and day. And I can see why residents on Prospect Street would not want such a development on their street. Of course, we cannot speak to what an owner would like to do with their property, but we could maybe influence the trajectory of the project in such a way that's acceptable to residents on Prospect Street, and also provides the landowner with some reasonable return on their property. But my personal feeling is that if the buildings are kept as is and renovated, renting them out to young families or young professionals would benefit them as well, because on the long term, their property values would probably stay or increase. Because what can you do with a rooming house? Who do you sell it to if you want to get rid of it? I don't know. That might be a better solution for them as well, if they just renovated the buildings as they are, without any addition or without any conversion.
One thing I want to be clear on is that that property does not need to come in front of this board for any approval or recommendation.
No, but this is a recommendation that we were asked
Yeah.
to make by the planning board.
So I met with Sam and I advised him to soften the blow with your neighbors and come to our board and let us give you ideas of what we think you should do and explore renovating that beautiful carriage house and see if he could get the dollars he needs out of that unit itself. And at the same time, maybe we could get him to clean up that front box and make that whole property a really nice piece of property.
What did he say?
He wasn't against it.
Okay.
Seems to me he was going to think about it.
When did you talk to him?
I spoke to him on Thursday or Friday. it was. Last week.
So if I could, if you're done, I would like to piggyback on that a little bit. I have a couple comments, and I appreciate all the comments from the public, from neighbors. One of the things that disturbs me is that the property owner is not in the room. We're missing a key stakeholder in this discussion, and I feel very uncomfortable having this level of conversation about somebody else's property when they're not here to, one, benefit from the conversation potentially and respond to the conversation. I think that was a big mistake. Secondly, I'd also like to correct the fact these are not rooming houses. We have a definition in the zoning code. A rooming house is, and I'll read, a dwelling unit occupied by a resident owner or agent and his family, and from whom 4 or more tenants rent sleeping space without provisions for meals. There's nothing in our code that I know of that refers to rental by room. It's not a term that I don't know what that means in terms of the zoning code. It may well be that that's what their intention is, but what they have proposed from the plans that I can see for 5 Prospect Street, they don't have site plan details for the building for 7 Prospect Street. They simply have a modular home, generic plan for something called Scarsdale from a builder. So we don't know what they actually intend to put there. But what they have for 5 Prospect Street is proposed for the carriage house is what we would call in this community a 2-family dwelling. That it happens to have 4 ensuite bedrooms is what it has, and you can interpret that any way you want. But it's not a rooming house. It has a kitchen. Each of the apartments has a kitchen. It has a living space, and it has bedrooms and bathrooms. So it's improper to equate, and because one of the letters refers to rooming houses, it appears to me that they are trying to conflate rental by room, if that in fact is what they're doing, with a rooming house. So I think we need to be careful about the language that we use. I agree with everything that you said. Otherwise, Camilla and George, that it occurred to me that if we could bring the property owners in and talk to them. My understanding is, I'm not sure what our purview here is exactly. Are we wearing our design review hats? Are we wearing our HPC hats, or a little of both? But these are historic structures and they're value to the neighbors and to the community. Maybe there are ways to work with them to get both the barn and the carriage house renovated into 2-family dwellings that would both meet the objectives of the property owner, as well as provide needed housing in this community, as well as provide the kind of housing that neighbors would like and that would perpetuate when it changes hands eventually. I just have one final comment, which when I was chair of the planning board, I said multiple times. There's nothing wrong with students living in houses in this community. And to refer to student housing as if it's a derogatory term is something that also really upsets me. Many people who are adults here now were students here once. And we have students, who come here and who get involved in the community and become, whether they stay here or not, many of them are contributing members to this community. And I just would like to ask that we choose our language carefully and not treat certain people as second-class citizens, but respect that by including them, they could become more involved in our neighborhoods and want to take care of them in the same ways that longer-term residents do. So those are the things I have to say.
Thank you, Matt.
Possible?
Yes. Yes, please.
I live on Plains Road. I've been there for almost 35 years. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Water Street corner there, was that very old, beautiful house that we tried to get to be an historic house. Where someone came in, they put a deck, no heat, a roof, attached it to huge plastic buildings, and he absolutely rents out every single room, those 2 plastic buildings. As I'm concerned, it's a room. There's no kitchen in there. There's 1 kitchen in the main house. And I wouldn't be surprised if somehow he finagled to make it single-family residence with 15 bedrooms. So people should be afraid when they talk about building a structure, putting in 6 bedrooms and not renting them as single bedrooms. And I'm not saying they're renting to students, I don't care who they're renting to, but it happens. It happened there, it shouldn't have happened there. And that was a beautiful old house that now looks, you know, they're not taking care of the property, it's terrible. I mean,
Which property are you talking about?
Street,
The one that's up on the hill that's multiple buildings? Yeah. It's multiple buildings.
all attached to one building, the one old.
Yeah,
beautiful house.
that's a rather unique example, I can tell you.
That's because,
It may well be, but we can have a discussion offline because,
but I just want to point that can happen very easily. And I was very much on top of that project.
yeah.
And there was a opposition against it.
There's building inspection.
This, I don't think this is the time or place, but knowing the property owner there and knowing these property owners, I don't think we're talking about the same beast here. And I'm not defending any one person, but I have a lot of historical information about what happened there, and the village tried to stop it, and basically it went to court, and I'm agreeing with you,
No,
but
I'm just saying on the rooming house part that you mentioned, that's actually, in my opinion, operating like a rooming house. So there are rooming houses.
I'm not saying there aren't rooming houses in this community. There are, in fact, there have been rooming houses in this community for over 100 years. There, and some of them are identify themselves as rooming houses, but I just want to be clear that if you're going to say things that somebody could then come back in a legal context, this is not a rooming house. It's a 2-family dwelling is what they're proposing for 5. And in fact, it's 3 bedrooms on each floor. So 3 bedrooms in each apartment. Why they've chosen to put bathrooms in each one, I'm not sure. Even if it was, rooming houses generally don't have that, by the way. And so I'm not even sure why they would choose to do that. That's not an inexpensive thing to consider doing. You probably are aware of that.
Right.
So one of the ways to help perhaps make it more feasible for them to do something else would be to suggest they don't do that, to save costs up front and have only, 2 bathrooms per 1 bedroom per 1.5 per dwelling unit. So in any event, I'm not accepting, I agree with what you said about that particular property and that we should all be aware of it, but I stand by what I said in terms of definitions. So.
I'm a little bit puzzled about this. Why is the property owner not here?
That's a very good
Does
question.
this not illustrate his disregard?
I don't think he was
for the
invited.
committee?
I'm not aware that he was actually invited to this. He was invited? Okay. Did he say why he couldn't come? Okay, well, that's good to know, because I was going to ask about that. So I don't know how to interpret that.
I think that to bend over backwards and wait on discussions for someone who doesn't care to appear when this project is on the agenda is wasting time.
Yeah. I lived for 18 years at number 8 Prospect Street. So I saw quite a few changes that occurred over those years. Rosalind, Bill, June, Gerald, Christine, and Allison. I know all of you, and there have been quite a number of changes, many as proposed by Sam and Rick. And over the years, I have worked with them to support their efforts, their various efforts to expand the gas station to add the convenience store. And I have seen other things. I have seen when number 6 was converted, they purchased it. It had been a funeral home at one time. It's a very large building. And whatever the zoning is, to see it carved up into 12 bedrooms and 1 kitchen is sort of, it's given me a sense of what they wanted, and they're landlords. I get it. And they converted Peter Lichtenstein's building, which as a chiropractor, and that was a professional practice, and seeing that be housing. And number 6 is not all student housing. In fact, I have seen over the years that there were people who, and talking with them, that they were not students at all. So this was something that this was a community, served the community in many other ways. But I have also seen, as June mentioned, more kids and families in this block on Prospect. It's very important. My wife Christine raised her daughter there, and buildings, neighborhoods don't stay the same. That's obvious. But these 2 buildings that are under discussion are indeed very important in the local historical style. They're not absolute gems as they are now. They both need work, but I would hope that that Sam and Rick would come around, as you, George, had mentioned, that they were not against, or that they would be willing to consider retaining these. I think it would be important, important to Prospect Street and important to the character of New Paltz if they were retained.
I say one thing that upset me a little bit. We can't. Their absence is not evidence on which we can base a presumption that they're hostile. They could be absent for any number of reasons.
Sure, I agree.
And since we don't have a role specifically, I would recommend that we share with the planning board our interest in preserving both 5 and 7.
Yes. I would actually take it a step further. I would suggest to the planning board that we, because we don't have any decision-making authority, but because these 2 buildings are historic, that we serve as a facilitating body to try to work with the property owners and the neighbors to, and because of the particular professional expertise and neighborhood experience that you all have, we try to facilitate a conversation, so that we recommend that the planning board, or we could directly ask the property owners and neighbors to sit down and have a conversation that some of us facilitate, and see if we can come up with some of the solutions that you suggested, and see if that leads to perhaps another conversation or 2 with them. And maybe the planning board would consider putting that application on pause for a couple of months if the property owners and neighbors are willing to consider that. So just putting that up for discussion.
I agree with basically, everything that you guys have said, and, I appreciate members of the community coming out. I also, I wish that the owners were here, and I totally understand that there's a number of reasons that they couldn't be, so I'm not passing any judgment on that, but if they were here, I would say that I understand, our American right to be industrious and to try and, do what we can to make our lives a little easier and to make some money. I get that. I would tell them that they're actually lucky to own these beautiful historic buildings, and that I work in the field of renovating historic buildings, and I understand that often it can be very costly with asbestos abatement, lead abatement. There's ways around that. I walked by the 2 buildings earlier today, and I was surprised to see that they were, especially the carriage house, in decent shape, and it's pretty large. I mean, I echoed the sentiments of one of the letters that we got, saying that it would be pretty feasible to renovate that, to achieve a 2-family home. And I mean, I'm not even really sure what to say about the designs that were presented in front of us, besides that I think it speaks to the fact that there's little to no consideration as to the historic character of what's being proposed and what's being potentially removed. I mean, I think what we're looking at, just kind of reiterates that. I mean, to take a kit house and to attach it to another house and, not have the front facades face the same direction, it's bizarre, to say the least. And, and also, I mean, just again, to speak about what's being proposed, I mean, where that house would be sited, I'm talking about number 7, is strange. It would be brought much further to the street. And I mean, I can't even get into the details of design because I feel like it's, again, nothing really was given in terms of considerations of the historic fabric of the street and the buildings that were there. I would just speak to the owners and try and tell them, that there's ways to save these buildings and still accomplish what it is that you want. And they're lovely buildings with lots of character, and they're lucky to own them, I would say. And the neighbors of Prospect Street, they're lucky that it's part of the fabric of their community, and hopefully there's a way they could be saved and still, accomplish what it is that the owners are looking to do. Yep.
Well said.
Thank you very much, everyone. I think at we will deliberate a bit more and write our final recommendations to the planning board and share it with the developers as well. If we think that we reached a conclusion of what to do, what are next steps.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank you
everyone
all.
for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Your opinions with.
For all your thoughts and documents.
Thank you.
The restroom in the building. There's the restroom here.
Michael, you mentioned about students being second, that students are sort of billed as second class citizens. And I don't know if we can speak for everybody, but I don't feel that way. I think they're really a vital part of our community. And I like living near students.
Right.
The problem is not for this board. It's just you have students piled in. If there were rooming houses, it would be better because there'd be one person sort of managing. It's just all these kids in one place with just running, possibly knows what they're doing, but it's hard to manage. And I live next door to them. I try to introduce myself successfully, often. So it's not about the students, it's about the situation in which they live, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
And it's great for the developers, but it stinks for the neighborhood, and it's not great for the students either. Because they're not integrated into our neighborhood and they would benefit.
Right, and
So
I
that's
thank
what
you. Yeah, thank you. I wasn't, you said what I meant to say more clearly than I said it. I was referring to the people, when I was on the planning board, would often refer to student housing
I know.
as if this was, and by reference, therefore, the inhabitants being student. Like if there were no students here, we wouldn't have student housing. And student housing, to me, was always presented as a derogatory term, as if this was an undesirable thing. And the way you put it is clear, because it's the situation around the housing that is the problem, not the inhabitants necessarily. Yeah, me too. I get. Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Right.
So next on the agenda, we have some updates and discussions. Number 1 is the Ann Oliver House landmark designation status.
Michael picked me up probably, so you may need to repeat this. The next step in the process is now that you approve the minutes in the last meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
We approved the minutes at the beginning.
We did, so
Yes.
now that you have approved it, I will excerpt the part of the minutes that deals with the land.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yes.
A cover letter to the.
And it will be.
Registering it.
Thank you, Val. And then maybe George, you have an update about 6870 Main Street, the renovation of the gourmet pizza building by Mr.
Yes,
Burke.
Mr. Burke got started on the renovation today.
Yeah.
They demolished the two front stoops and built them out of brick, and
Yeah.
they're coming out really nice, and they're gonna install the half brick along the front facade, the lower part. And the siding contract is, unfortunately, the siding's delayed for another 30 days, but they're gonna start taking off all the old aluminum siding and putting on all the half-inch high R board or foam board and prep it while they're waiting for the siding. The painter started painting all the overhangs. Everything's painted white.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's coming along.
Yeah, looks good. White with gold stars on the tips.
Yeah, it's gonna have some red stars on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, look, it already, you can see the difference.
Yeah.
Number 3 is the finger post sign at Elking Memorial Library. The sign had been installed and
There's a picture of it.
yes, and thank goodness, my fears about it being overwhelming or too massive were not founded, thankfully. And I said as much to Alan, who was very appreciative of my coming around. I mean, I didn't have a problem with the sign itself, as I said many times, just that I was afraid that the location may not be the best. It might be too distracting, but it looks
right?
really nice.
Yeah, it does.
I love it. I
very
told Alan
whimsical.
that it's really neat.
Yeah.
I love it. So next is the art show. I had a chance to talk to Gillian Murphy, the director of the library, and she would be in favor of having a 2-month-long exhibit next year.
Great.
She really enjoyed it and was sad when all the pictures came down. So we have her full support.
Do you think you'd want to do May, June, or June, July, or what
Probably
would you?
May, June.
Yeah.
Kind of like the way we started. It's,
Okay.
Here, May, June, it's a
Okay.
good time. So we will start the planning process early and get on the calendar,
yeah.
yes, on time, so that we won't have to scramble for availability. We have number 5, summer survey of Bluestone sidewalks.
There is no existing map of the Bluestone sidewalks or list that Corey is aware of. So he showed me, I guess there is a mapping tool that one of his colleagues uses and offered to create a map for us. But we really can't do it probably in the next 2 weeks while Corey is with us. So I will speak with him about, how to pursue that opportunity. Maybe after he's gone, but when Tom is back, this Tom hasn't been part of this conversation yet at all. So hopefully we'll be.
Didn't somebody mention at the last meeting that maybe Mr. Stout has?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the mid-90s, he was involved in a sidewalk survey for the community, for the village, with the intention of, as I said before, of trying to create a village sidewalk fund. The village would be regularly incorporating in their budget a certain amount of money, and then over time, the sidewalks would get periodically updated. It wasn't specific to Bluestone sidewalks, but I'd be happy to contact him. Would that be?
Sure, that would be
Okay,
fantastic.
okay, I'll
yes.
add that.
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you.
Sure.
very much.
Yeah, he may or may not have it. I don't think I still have it in any of my records, but I can look in my boxes. All right.
And then we have some applications for design review from the planning board and ZBA. 184 Main Street. There was a public hearing about the site plan and special use permit. I don't know what was the outcome of the public hearing.
I'm not sure either. Are available. I don't believe there was anything further in terms of our
Yeah.
need for consultation. Yeah.
I think it's the same situation with number 4 Oakwood Court
Yeah,
as
that-
well, but
That site plan amendment had to do with the driveway, so. it was
yeah,
really not-
it's just an expansion of the driveway to provide more parking spaces. That's not in our purview really. And then a revised site plan is expected for 11 Water Street, which hasn't come in yet, I think. Do we have anything on Huguenot Street report?
I don't
Steve?
think I've got anything.
I haven't heard anything about 181. Since I went to the village board meeting, which I did go to representing the Historic Preservation Commission. The outcome there was the village board listened to the proposal that we had discussed, and the mayor suggested, rather than changing the code, that the tenants at 181, the Arborvitae School, reach out to the New York State Department of Ag and Markets to see if they would provide. I don't want to try to incorrectly paraphrase. You might remember better, Bill. But basically to get support from the New York State Ag and Markets that this was an agricultural use for the property, and that therefore it would then be an allowed use and would supersede any village zoning uses. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, you do. And I haven't heard that, but they reached out to New York Ag yet. Response.
Okay.
I imagine it'll take a few weeks to get back.
Yeah, so after the meeting, the co-directors of the school said that they would pick it up at that point, so we'll have to wait to hear from them.
Can I just have a question? I mean, we're here for item E. No, C. You didn't get any update on that? Is that why we're skipping over Water Street?
Yes,
Yeah.
the revised site plans didn't come in yet to the planning board.
We've been in a consultation role with that. Yeah, and the new plans have not been available to us.
We're just trying to get information because the planning board doesn't seem to be having any meetings about it. We're trying to find out information about it.
I think the planning board too is waiting for it. I understand.
I mean, it would be very useful for your constituency, that is us and other people, if someone who was supposed to be representing a project decides not to have that project discussed, it's put on the agenda so that we won't be sitting here for 2 hours
Yes.
waiting to.
So these are standing, the things that you're looking at are standing items that they're not specific to this month's agenda. So these updates and discussions, which is part E of our agenda, if you wanted to leave your contact information with us, when we know that we have new information about that application, we'd be happy to email you or text you, and then you could come to the meetings and wouldn't waste your time. We'd be here. Yes, sir, if you leave that with Val.
More agendas and links to applications are always posted.
Jamie didn't notice on that.
Yeah, yeah.
I heard road letters.
Those are.
They want me to- I'm just bothering you.
I have one more Huguenot Street thing.
Highway. This is we just didn't have any for that. Yeah, I kind of expected it. Thank you.
Steve, you have another item?
One more thing for the Huguenot Street report. Last month, I noted that the house at 12 Mulberry had the roof replaced without a certificate of appropriateness. And fortunately, it was like for like. But last week, I ran into the owner and let him know, despite what he got in mail about process, that this was not meant to be onerous. This was not going to be something, and I just said, we just want to be involved, and I think he has a better idea. So hopefully in the future, any other projects, he would at least come talk to me, and then I would give him again the process.
Corey told me about this today, and he told me that he had sent him a notice, and that they straightened it out.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's the reason that
Yeah, and I just said, look, if you put a standing seam metal roof or something on there that was not original, that would be a problem. So avoid those issues.
Item number 7B, there was an application submitted to the planning board from historic Huguenot Street to subdivide two parcels, number 54 and 60 Huguenot Street, to provide a small burial space to free Lenape tribal nations whose ancestors originally resided on this land, and to ensure the protection of that space in perpetuity. At the end of our last meeting, we submitted a letter of support of this endeavor. I think it's still stands. Oh, I said that at the end of our last meeting, we submitted a letter to support historic Huguenot Street. I think, didn't we send something?
I don't, I'm still not aware of that, but, I mean, I think.
I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken. I thought I read something.
I remember having been discussed or having come to us. I don't know.
This it was only a pre-application when it came up to the planning board last time. I'm not actually sure what this is, but I wanted to make sure that because it's Huguenot Street related, that we were aware of it as well, and I just think it's an admirable project.
Yeah, I think we just voiced our non-objection to it at the last meeting, but maybe we didn't say anything. I think we said that we think it's a good idea. Does anybody remember? I think we did say that it's a good idea. Let me go back to. Maybe I just skipped ahead in my mind of what we would probably do.
Is the church still doing work, or is that project done?
I think the elevator they are still waiting for the
They're
elevator.
still in progress. Okay.
I think so. And at the Jennison House, I'm not aware of the siding situation, if it changed or they only replaced the windows so far. And other business. We had a FOIL request for 191 Huguenot Street.
Right.
And Corey updated us with some new information. He received several phone calls about the house, maybe converted to a museum.
Yeah,
That's an interesting idea. Would be nice.
I was told today by the deputy clerk that we were mostly copied for information. This is the street. This particular property, we really haven't had any action.
Yeah.
See action. It's listed on the National Register, but that predated the establishment of the commission. We have nothing in terms of the process.
so there's nothing we need to do.
Well, I searched mine too to see if there was anything, at one point this was 195, 193. It's great.
Number 8 on the agenda is our budget report. We are in good standing as of June 30, 2023. We expended 6.91% of our total budget. That's always a good thing. Number 9, Bell submitted the CLG quadrennial audit
Yay.
for fiscal year 2022.
Oh, my goodness.
It was a very difficult task.
There are 2 documents here. One is on the annual report, which is you've seen before. Couple of pages. Meetings are the quadrennial audit is about our process. So fortunately, there were only 3 years in this quadrennial audit report. So, but we had to provide application, 2 applications for each of those years that show how our process. We had a public hearing. Put that before and after application.
Oh, no wonder Tom is in Italy, and you probably want a vacation too.
Well, thank you for doing all that.
So I did not share copies because some people find.
Number 10A, updates on completion of required annual training. We have the workplace violence prevention and harassment and discrimination webinars, which we are required to take once a month. Did anyone?
Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Once a month?
No, once a year, sorry.
Oh, okay,
Did I
thank
say
you.
once a month?
But
I'm
I
sorry.
had heard of it, but I was just- Still have to do
I know
it.
where you'll be. Next month.
I've done it on June 27.
Is it 1 hour?
It's less.
I'm due.
Less?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
good.
maybe 4.
I'm due.
Yeah,
No, I haven't, I will, but as long as I have 12 months to do it, I'll do it.
And then, of course, we have a few resources for training provided by the Preservation League of New York State, and the National Trust and the NAPC. If anyone would like to utilize that, it would be great. There are some wonderful presentations and videos to watch. Does anybody have any other business to discuss or other projects that might be of interest? Do you think should we maybe think about a special meeting in August, just in case Mr. Serda would like to talk to us? Or shall we just wait until September?
I mean, we can certainly look at people's availability for August. Several have vacations. And the big meeting date wasn't gonna work.
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be around the first 3 weeks of August. Thank you.
Do we know when the planning board's taking up their application again? I closed the Firefox, but they've had at least a couple of meetings with the planning board. Because they submitted revised plans, so
Yeah.
they must have had at least a couple.
I think they've done it.
Okay.
So maybe as we write our recommendation, we should do some research, some additional research to see if there is a basis for designating the carriage house, for example, as a local landmark. Maybe since it's been associated with local personages connected to schools, the college, and the normal school. I don't know if that's enough, if it meets the criteria for designation, but we could look into that and do some research. Or
Yeah.
talk to Mr. Rhodes, Mr. William Rhodes. He might have some information that could be useful. And I guess the other aspect of this is just the proposed design, whether it fits in with the neighborhood. Since we can't really comment on the purpose of the proposed buildings, but just the aesthetics of it, or how they fit in with existing architecture or existing streetscapes.
Are you thinking about sort of content for a letter to the planning board?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we could-
It's probably not, yeah, as you said, Michael, it's not a good idea to kind of try to presume what the intent of the developer
And
is.
I can go to the historical room at the library and see what documents and old photos they might have, and see what kind of work might be able to be done to bring it back to the historic character, because it seems like the first floor has been changed, but everything above that is may not be an extensive renovation. And I don't know, maybe we can get that information to the owners and try and convince them that it's not a whole lot of work to bring it back to what it used to be. In terms of
Do we know anything about the barn? Because I was imagining, it's a large barn.
It is.
And I don't know if it's in a state where you could convert that into residences. I mean, there are examples of barns in the community that have been turned into 1 and 2 family homes, but I have no idea whether that's a realistic proposal for that.
Yeah. And also, is there an ADU law in the village? Or no? Was that ever passed? An accessory dwelling unit law?
Yes.
It did, okay, so, all right, so that might.
Does the ADU have to be connected to the existing building?
No,
in
it
some way?
doesn't necessarily have to be. But there are residency requirements. The owner has to live on the property, so that wouldn't be a feasible option for that.
Did anyone watch the planning board meeting?
No, but I read the minutes of it.
Yes, because Mr. Serda said that he would be willing to renovate the barn. The only reason they would
Oh, he wanted a
demolish it
density. Right,
is
he
because of
wanted them
lot
to waive-
coverage. It's
Yeah,
probably
right.
the lot coverage, that it might not be compliant if if they extend the building.
Yeah, that's right. He said density, right, but he meant
Yeah,
lot
but-
coverage. Right.
So if he would get an exemption, then he would be willing to.
Yeah, he
be
would probably
open
have to
just
go. Can the planning board waive that? I'm not sure that they have that. But he would have to, in either case, he'd have to go to the ZBA if he was going to put two principally permitted uses on the same lot.
Yeah, the problem with that is that, I don't think we want to see vinyl siding plastered on that bond.
No, of course not.
Yeah, and it's,
No, he'd have,
I think, I think they're gonna put the least expensive, product on. It's all about budget there and like the front box. And
yeah, you may be right.
it's to get them to let us, give him recommendations and he's open to it. And, we could steer it in the best possible way.
Right. I wonder if they're,
I might go have another talk with him.
no, I think we should.
Yeah.
If you would, that would be great. I'd be happy to join you. Let me know when. Actually, I would defer to Shane in this case because I'm really busy and I don't want there to be a quorum. So,
Yeah, I think it might be easier for me to go alone.
Okay.
It's not gang up on him.
no, I mean, I've had lots of good interactions with them and so they generally are very kind to me, but go for it. That's fine. I wonder if there are opportunities for grants for preserving historic accessory structures like barns and carriage houses.
That's
Something
possible.
to look into.
I think very often it needs to be within some kind of designated neighborhood, but.
Okay,
That's,
that makes sense.
but there is a website where you could check when grants are available to you. I haven't, historicfunding.com. Believe it or not, yeah.
.com.
Very simple website. but
Pretty good.
Not .org, but .com.
.com, exactly, yeah. But it's a good resource. I use it pretty often at my job, so.
All right.
Anything
Well,
else?
thank you, George.
Right, yep. Well,
Yes.
Wondering if, Ulster County Planning Board has to review the energy funding plan. Maybe that's pretty common.
There is nothing else, then I posed a question if anybody. would join. Steve,
Do adjourn.
we have a second.
Second.
Going forward,
Hi.
thank you very much.
Good job. Nice job, yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank
Thank you.
Ned, Bill. Okay. Hey, next phase, the pillow.